Who is Jesus? This is the question we're seeking to answer as we go through the Gospel of John. When we looked at chapter 1, we examined how John might be the person who knows Jesus the best. And we looked at how, from the get-go, John tried to establish that Jesus is much more than any of us can even comprehend. With this episode, we'll be looking at John 2, verses 1 through 11. If you haven't already, please pause this video and read that selection. If you don't have a Bible handy, you can read an online version by accessing the link in the video description. Imagine if you knew every person on earth, and before you entered the world, were able to pick which one would be your mom. Jesus is probably the only person to ever live who we know was able to make that choice. Imagine how deeply he must have known and loved his mother. He knew her before he was born. He knew her before she was born. This particular scene shows us Jesus, his mother, and his disciples at a wedding in Cana. Jesus is roughly 30 years old at this time, and while that wouldn't have given Mary adequate time to know her son as well as he knew her, at this point, there would have been no one who knew him better. The wedding runs out of wine. Weddings were a big deal for the whole town. This would have been very embarrassing for the family who was throwing the wedding. Jesus' mom comes to him with a statement. They have no more wine. Imagine the look that must have been on her face. Concern for the family that she knows. The expectation that must have been all over her as she approaches her son. Jesus responds by asking, "Why are you involving me in this?" That is a great question. Why is Mary coming to him with this? John tells us that this is Jesus' first public miracle. But what has Mom seen in the last 30 years that would cause her to come to him with this problem? No one else at the party even thinks about coming to Jesus with this problem. But if you fast forward 3 years, every one of his disciples would have come to him with stuff like this. They would all eventually see the creative power that was at his hands. All you have to do is read the first 3 verses of John 1 to have an idea of who John thinks Jesus is by the end of his time on earth. My guess is that Mary has seen some stuff over the years. Not public miracles, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't have happened. But we do know that he's exactly the same person in John 2 as he will be in John 6 when he feeds the 5,000 with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Furthermore, we know that when Jesus was growing up, he was the same person as a kid in his parents' house as he was in Matthew 8 when he calms the storm. This isn't a video game. It's not a Hollywood production. Jesus doesn't have to unlock powers or learn how to use them. He's either the creator of the universe, as John claims, or he isn't. Angels announced his conception. They also announced his birth. Shepherds left their sheep in the fields and came and worshipped at the feet of this baby right after he was born. Magi traveled long distances to give this new family gold, frankincense, and myrrh. It's not like God was keeping Mary in the dark. She was in on this from the get-go. It isn't backed up in Scripture, but it is my belief that Mary has seen some things along the way, some miracles that would lead her to make the unspoken, audacious request that she lays at Jesus' feet right here. And I double down on my belief after reading what Mary says next after Jesus expresses reluctance about getting involved. She ignores his reluctance and tells the workers, "Do whatever he tells you." She had to have known that he was going to ask them to do something that might cause them to scratch their heads in bewilderment. In my mind, she has to have known what he was capable of doing, and the only way she could have known is to have lived through similar miracles. Jesus tells her, "My time has not yet come." He's not hiding anything from her. He doesn't pretend he can't help. He's arguing that it's too soon for him to reveal who he is to everybody else. He's explaining why he's dragging his feet, why he hasn't already addressed the problem. But I also believe that, given how Mary just disregards what he says and goes on expecting him to take care of the problem, that Jesus' expression probably betrayed the reluctance he expressed. I also can't help but wonder if she hasn't already had these types of discussions with him throughout the years. She doesn't even listen to what he says. She knows him. She knows what he's going to do. Of course, he goes beyond simply granting her unspoken request. He doesn't just refill with what they already had. He turns water into a wine that is so good that the master of the banquet makes a special announcement about how good it is. This is Jesus. When we make our audacious requests, when we do it in faith and belief and hope, not only does he not disappoint, because he never disappoints, he gives us his best. He exceeds our expectations. So, when I applied these thoughts to my own life and my own relationship to Jesus, I can't help but wonder, am I not being audacious enough? Don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating for anything like a prosperity gospel. Mary's request was not for herself. It was to keep someone that all of them knew from having to deal with the kind of public shame that would probably never have gone away without Jesus' intervention. It also had the side benefit of showing some people who Jesus is. While he clearly didn't think it was time for that yet, he didn't let timing get in the way of someone who needed immediate intervention. He laid down his own schedule and helped the person in front of him. Are my prayers for other people audacious? Should I be worrying about what's in your plan, Lord? Or should I just be brave and come to him with wide, expectant eyes that know him and make my request? He's the creator of the universe. He can decide about what's in his plan and what isn't. Make the request.